Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades. And everything will be revealed. Okay? Give that to RFK Jr.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Wow.
All right. And
that was no auto pen. That was like his.
Oh, yes, he actually does.
His giant Sharpie, Eric, when he does that stuff.
He's consistent, though. Have you seen his signature? It's very
All the
jaggy.
same. Yeah. He's got an auto pen for an arm.
He absolutely does. But I thought that's a perfect opener because our guest, Andrew Iler, who is one of the multitude of co-authors of JFK Chokeholds, has reached out with some concerns that the files aren't really coming out.
What?
Yeah. So
I thought that was it. I thought we were done, Hunley. I thought the files would be gushing over the brink and into the hands of people like Andrew and his ilk. But you're saying no.
No, it appears that the industrious Congresswoman Luna has not truly opened the can up.
What?
And there are potentially gatekeepers, but I don't want to speak for Andrew. I'd much rather introduce everybody. Andrew, how are you doing?
Good evening, gentlemen. It's good to be with you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So can you tell us what is going on and why you reached out?
Yes, certainly. Myself, Mark Adamczyk, who's a Florida attorney, and Jeff Crudell, who you and your viewers may know, does the podcast and YouTube channel, JFK, The Enduring Secret. We all wrote a letter to Representative Luna. This is one in a series of communications that we've had. And listen, I want to say right off the hop that we couldn't appreciate Representative Luna more and the job that she and the task force have done. They've done more to release the files after President Trump's executive order earlier this year in January than has happened in the last 30 years. So in no way am I critical about the efforts that have been made over the last year, especially to release the records. What our major concern is that we have the JFK Records Act that was passed in 1992. And this act came on the heels of Oliver Stone's film, JFK, and they created the Assassination Records Review Board, which really was formed in April of 1994. The importance of this is that the JFK Records Act created an enforceable, accountable, and transparent process for the collection, review, and release of all assassination records. And what we've seen over the last several years, since 2017, when the records were supposed to be all released in accordance with the law, we've seen just a failure to recognize what the process and framework that was created by the JFK Records Act actually imposed. And a lot of the key parts of the framework have kind of remained hidden or a mystery to most of the public and even a great part of the research community. And so what Mark and I particularly have done over the last 5 years is we've done deep research into the JFK Records Act, and we've really exposed the process that Congress, the National Archivist in particular, were supposed to follow in terms of the periodic review and release of the records. And during the course of the last 5 years, as you've noted in your show notes, we discovered that one of the major things that is not being discussed or made public are tens of thousands of legal orders issued by the Assassination Records Review Board between 1995 and 1998. And these are the actual administrative agency final actions, and they're detailed documents that provide the written reasons to postpone the records after the ARB reviewed them, and to release and periodically review those records in accordance with the law.
So these are, sorry to interrupt. So is this like the meta information about the files themselves?
You know what, Eric? What they are like mini, they're not court orders, but they kind of operate and look like a court order. Part of the requirements under the Administrative Procedures Act are that independent agencies, if they're empowered to make any kind of decisions, quasi-judicial decisions or rulemaking, is that they have to provide adequate reasons for their decisions. And the JFK Records Act, under, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of what the sections of the Act say, but Section 9C3B of the JFK Records Act actually mandated a very specific set of information to be included in the ARRB's final determinations. They had to provide enough detail that these decisions could be reviewed by a court in a judicial review process. And so this is part of the framework. You got to have adequate written reasons for a decision in order to fall under the Administrative Procedures Act. And that's what these final determination notifications provide. They provide the Section 6 specific reasons for allowing a postponement, and they provide specific dates or occurrences on which the National Archivist and the agencies had to comply with the review or release orders. And they do provide very detailed orders to either release or periodically review these records to see whether the postponement criteria are still in play.
Okay.
Andrew, isn't the Achilles, and this is just a broad generalization, but isn't the Achilles heel of this entire debacle the politicization of the National Archivist? The archivist, as you point out in some of your documents, was supposed to be a glorified librarian in this process. And tell me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like that has become a political job. And we saw this with the raid on Mar-a-Lago and Trump having to deal with this archivist who he then fired, who didn't want to leave. I had no idea that this archivist position had become a political juggling act. Am I wrong here? I mean, what is your take on the job itself of the archivist in relation to the Records Review Board?
There's actually a lot to unpack with that question.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So the archivist in the JFK Records Act was mandated what are called ministerial duties, okay? And while the archivist isn't a minister like you would get in Great Britain or in Canada, the archivist is actually an official. And what ministerial duties do? They impose non-discretionary, mandatory obligations or duties on a specific individual. And so because they're non-discretionary, what the Act imposed with regard to the records on the archivist is that the archivist had to follow the ARRB's final determinations. And that's, again, imposed on the archivist by Section 5G1 of the Act. It says the archivist shall periodically review or release the records in accordance with the ARRB's recommendations found in the final determinations. And so, again, over the years, what I found when I went to NARA were hundreds of final determination notifications from the ARRB that ordered records released in the mid-2000s. And when I cross-referenced those with my co-author, Paul Blow, and a few other people, it was found that hundreds of the orders issued by the ARB weren't complied with, and records stayed withheld until 2018, 2021, 2023, right up to 2025. But guys, I was only able to obtain 450 final determinations, which is less than 2% of the total number of final determinations issued by the ARB. So there were about 27,000 ARRB final determinations, and all that I've been able to get a hold of in total is about 751. 300 of those were consent orders that had to deal with keeping things like social security numbers confidential from the HSCA. So they blanket postponed a bunch of those, about 300 of those. So the only active ones are about 450. And yeah, the archivist had no discretion. So the archivist has no power to decide, okay, I'm going to keep this record withheld for whatever reasons. No, they have to follow the ARB's final determinations, and we don't believe that that has happened in accordance with the full totality of the ARB's work.
Well, if I may interject, thank you for that. Somebody believes the archivist is a power player because the archivist position demands United States Senate confirmation, which I didn't realize until 6 years ago. And somebody believes in a constitutional world that this position is more than ministerial, which is kind of, I think, where the chokehold, to use a phrase of your book, might be happening in terms of the release of these documents.
Well, you know,
I mean, even the new person has not been confirmed yet, Andrew.
Yeah, I understand that that Secretary Rubio is acting archivist at the time.
That too, I forget. He's everything.
Forgetting his other job, Eric.
Yeah. That's right.
Thank you.
And I think he's National Security Advisor,
Yeah.
and
Secretary of State,
right?
National Archivist.
I think he's a commissioner
of
of Major. I think he's commissioner of Major League Baseball also.
Yeah, he's head of USAID as well. I forget. The guy's got 8 jobs.
Yeah, I think that really what we've done by, and I've made FOIA requests to get the other 26,000 plus final determinations from the archives. I've made very specific, targeted FOIA requests for specific final determinations so that I can see exactly how the archives and the archivist followed the law. And you know, sadly or unfortunately, all of my FOIA requests have gone acknowledged, so they've received them, they've admitted that they've received them, but there's been no substantive follow-up with regard to any of the FOIA requests that I've made, which is problematic because all of these final determinations should have been made public very shortly after they were issued by the ARRB.
Well, playing devil's advocate for a moment, is it possible, and this is also, I think, in some of your writings, this is just my analysis of it, in the course of the time period that we're dealing with, we as a culture have moved from an analog to a digital world, Andrew, if you know what I'm talking about here. And obviously they are lagging behind, but so is the entire society. In digitizing stuff. I can't even find my own stuff from magazines from the 80s that's digitized. So not to let them off the hook, I'm just playing devil's advocate here as to one of the reasons they may be way behind in their scanning, their process of index card use, digitizing it, all of that stuff, which you people have pointed out.
Well, Mark, also you've got to photocopy the same document 8 times before you put it out.
Right. Well, that was in the 70s. Yeah.
To make sure that it's gummed up and hard to read as possible.
Right. But I think Andrew and his group have talked about the lack of digital scans. Correct, Andrew? Or
you know what? It's I'm kind of chuckling here because part of the research that I did is that I actually contacted and communicated with a number of senior ARRB staff and leadership. I've communicated with Jeremy Gunn. He's quite elusive these days, but he was generous with a lot of the information that he provided to me. I've been in communication with Judge Tunheim and David Marwell, who was a long-serving executive director of the ARRB. But really, the interesting guy was an IT guy, their tech guy, who set up the whole system for them.
Mhm.
And when I spoke with him, it was clear the ARRB established a very technically sophisticated system for the early 90s that digitally and electronically tracked each record as it went through the entire ARRB process, from giving it a RIF number right through to the review. And sometimes there were multiple reviews by the review board of specific documents. And so they tracked that on what they called a fast track system, and it was a Lotus Note system. And so each decision within each record was tracked separately. And so it was pretty amazing to see how they did these things. And this IT specialist, he basically said when the ARRB closed up, they shipped all of the computer servers and disks and backup storage all to the National Archives with all of these decisions. And the other amazing thing that through my research I found is that they literally had a project to deal with these ARRB final determinations. And they did physically print out a copy of the final determination, and they attached it to each record before it was transferred over to the National Archives to be included in the collection. So the National Archives was tracking very carefully the transmission of these records. That's part of their job over there, and they're diligent at doing that. And so there are email back and forth from the National Archives to the ARRB going, hey, you forgot to attach a copy of your final determination for RIF number blah, blah, blah. And would you please resend that with the final determination notification attached to the front? So when these postponed records went into the NARA collection, into the protected collection, they 100% had all of these final determinations attached, and the fast track digital system, including all the computers, was transferred over there. So
how did they do it before email? How did they communicate, Andrew?
What, the ARRB? I don't know if they
Right.
did. They had email going right back to the 1994 start.
Right, because it's right around that period, though, Eric. It's right on the cusp.
It is.
Oh no, well,
That's why
email's
I'm
available.
curious. What?
Well, okay, my wife's been using email since '83.
Your wife's been using email since 1983? Well, she was
because in the government they had email. Email has been around for quite a while, so that was probably there the whole time.
And I can tell you this: all of the ARRB's email is available online through the National Archives, and I scraped hundreds of thousands of ARRB email. And there was one interesting one. I've mentioned this in a couple of my articles, from 6 days before the end of the ARRB. So its operations terminated at the end of September in 1998. And I think on like September 22nd, a senior ARRB staffer said, holy crap, we have 14,000 final determinations that we need to print and attach to the records before like the end of the week. I'm not kidding. If I were to pull a number out of a hat, I wouldn't have picked 14,000. And they had to take over a specific printer at the ARRB so that they could print these records. 100%, these records exist in both digital and in hard paper format. For me, I don't understand why the final determinations were not digitized along with the actual records when each of those records were released, because NARA had to physically remove those final determinations before they digitized the rest of the record. Makes no sense.
Right. It seems like this could be my imagination, but it seems like they are constantly in the process of digitizing everything and also using that as an excuse.
Yeah,
It's
back
not as
in
complex.
2016, Martha Murphy, who was a senior archivist in charge of the JFK records, she wrote in an article published by the National Archives magazine, she goes, all of the JFK records that are postponed have been digitized.
Oh, wow.
So back
Okay.
in 2016, they acknowledged
Okay.
that everything was digitized.
Right. Was the McCone-Rowley document digitized?
I don't know. I don't know specifically. You know, this is a topic. There were a lot of records that, and I sent you over a clip of Judge Tunheim's testimony in front of the task force. But a lot of records were transferred to NARA after the ARRB went out of operations. And Judge Tunheim's statement to the task force is just fascinating when you dig into it.
Oh, let's take a look.
Agencies to protect information. Most redacted information had release dates attached to them. We made it easy for the researchers to determine whether a redacted name appeared in different locations so that they would know it was the same person. There were a further 33,000 consent releases, which essentially means that the agency saw the handwriting on the wall and released the documents directly since we were likely to order release. When we finished, there were nearly 5 million pages at the National Archives. We made the decision early that we would not protect any information directly related to the assassination because of the high level of public interest. By 2017, when the last records were to be released under the Act, there were probably not more than 1,500 review board redactions that were remaining. The Act was clear in stating that despite the review board wrapping up its work in 1998, the Act was to continue in effect, which meant that agencies had the obligation to continue to present information. Most of the redactions now in the documents are within documents never shown to the review board, but were transferred to NARA at a later time. Agencies largely complied with the mandate to present records to the review board. However, there were many delays and denials with records that we specifically requested, and there were many skirmishes along the way. It does not take a rocket scientist to realize that agencies were awaiting the end of our 3-year mandate. The first 500 or so adverse disclosure decisions we made in
that's
FBI.
The crux of it. I mean, the really shocking thing is by 2017, there should have only been 1,500 redactions left to disclose, like ARRB redactions. Well, I think we all know, I think the number that was going around was between 31,000 and 45,000 files that had still not been completely released, not 1,500.
I've heard the number 27,000, but you have a higher number.
That's in the description. 27,000 that are just sitting there.
Okay,
not 1,500, right?
Right.
And the other thing that Judge Tunheim said was that a lot of the records, and I think that he was referring to the March 2025 release, that they were never shown to the ARRB and therefore were never reviewed by the ARRB. And what we're seeing is that, like, let's take, for example, you guys are familiar with the name Reuben Efron, right?
Yes. Yeah.
He was the CIA agent or officer that was partly responsible for the HT Lingual program that was monitoring Lee Harvey Oswald's mail.
Did he worked with Joe and Ides, I guess, down in JM Wave down there?
Yeah,
that was my impression. Yeah, according to Morley.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a fairly well-known guy, but his records were only released, I think, in 2023 and 2025. Okay, Reuben
Well,
Eflon
the
died.
same with the same with Joe and Edie's records that just literally came out as work records, at least.
There's a little bit of a difference. Joe and Edie's files, I believe, were designated not believed relevant,
Right.
whereas
Is that
Efron,
an actual designation, NBR?
NBR? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Weird.
So when the review board looked at records, the agencies would say these have nothing to do with the assassination, and the board members would make a determination whether they were NBR or whether they were relevant. That was kind of a first line. Are they assassination records? Are they relevant? And a lot of these records were designated not believed relevant. The Joe and Edie's files fell into that category.
Isn't that a concern, though, that you have some people arbitrarily saying, hey, I don't think that's relevant, but it could be maybe relevant, and that's a filter.
Or the reverse, Eric. It could be that they're correct.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it could be. Or
Yeah. I mean, they also
I mean,
don't want to get into it seems like in general, besides the other, smoke and mirrors, they seem determined not to let the Bay of Pigs stuff conflate with the JFK assassination. And I just wanted to get your opinion on that, Andrew.
Yeah, with regard to
is it the right decision?
With regard to the Joe and Edie's files, Judge Tunheim has many times now publicly stated that those records should have been released. And during his May 20th testimony, he made it unavoidably clear that the Joe and Edie's file should be immediately found and released. And I think the pressure that he put on Representative Luna to get those Joe and Edie's files was probably a large piece of why they were, well, the personnel files. I don't believe that all of the operational files have been released regarding Joe and Edie's. So did the ARRB make a bad decision with regard to the Joe and Edie's files? I think even Judge Tunheim said that if they had the hindsight back in the 1990s, they would have ordered those files produced and released. So, no.
Right, but Joe and Edie's was the point man. So how would Joe and Edie's cooperate with them asking for his own files?
Yeah, look, I do credit Jeff Morley for really opening up that whole area of investigation. My issue is that's not the end all be all of every aspect of the assassination.
Of course,
there seems to be an adversity to checking on a lot of the JM Wave business and Mexico City.
Yeah.
I don't know why. In terms of trying to get to the bottom,
you might know why. If they're trying to frame the guy a month before the assassination, that might be a sensitive area.
Yeah,
you know the answer to that.
We're talking about the HSCA or the current task force. The current task force really hasn't dug into JM Wave except for maybe Diaz, and it certainly hasn't really gone into David Phillips or Mexico City to any great length.
You mean the current Luna task force?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, where are we with this task force that you seem to be completely
frustrated?
I don't know about frustrated. He seems to think. I don't want to put the words in your mouth, but you seem to be thinking they're doing a great job.
Okay. Again, I just want to be clear.
Yeah,
the task force has released a number of records that are of great interest to certain researchers. What they haven't done is what the Act requires, and that is conduct oversight over the JFK records collection and the ARRB's final determinations. And those are specifically mandated oversight duties that are imposed by the JFK Records Act. And what we've said in our letter that was sent out this morning is that, without that oversight, we really don't have a clear picture of the full state of the records collection. We don't know what the ARRB reviewed. We don't know what the ARRB reviewed has been fully disclosed without having a full and complete index and and catalog of records, which
Well,
is also
how were records released before the Luna Task Force? Why did we need them to release these records?
yeah, because
We seem to have released hundreds of thousands of records since 1979 without Luna.
Yeah, I think the disclosure of records has been a real problem, and President Trump's order certainly assisted with prying out those 2,400 FBI files and getting Director Ratcliffe to move on a number of CIA files. So
Right, but those are his cabinet appointees. I mean, Luna seemed to come out of nowhere and say, I am the determiner and buffer of the history of JFK files, and everybody embraced this woman like she was a gift from God. Why do we need this task force? I don't understand the purpose in terms of releasing documents.
You know, Mark, that is kind of our point. We have the JFK Records Act, which is still in full force and effect. It has enforcement provisions, whereas, again, I don't want to be critical. President Trump's executive order has no enforcement provisions.
Right.
So we got to use the JFK Records Act the way it was designed by Congress to be used. So let's use those enforcement. You're absolutely right. We shouldn't have to have this task force. That job should have been done, and Congress's focus really should be in terms of doing oversight to make sure that the provisions of the act have actually been fulfilled.
Right. I mean, part of the reason I mention this is because you have a lot of Democrats, a lot of Republicans on that committee who may have their own political agenda, who are going to say, no, this document is not coming out over my dead body. And I congratulations for releasing documents that, are not as volatile. But according to Larry Schnapp the other day, emailed me saying that Luna was attempting to get the chapter out of the William Manchester book, The Death of the President, which interviewed Jackie Kennedy regarding her opinions on the assassination. Well, according to all of my sources, her opinions were, among other things, that LBJ was involved. I don't know if Democrats on that committee are going to allow that to come out. I'm just cherry picking something here recently that Larry emailed.
I was going to bring up the whole word about cherry picking for sure.
Yeah.
What we're proposing, and we're not criticizing releasing specific records because everything adds to the general knowledge.
Right.
But what we're saying is with the JFK Records Act, we have an enforceable, accountable piece of legislation, and that if you don't seek oversight of the whole collection and what the ARB did, you can't have a lay of the land in terms of what was reviewed, what's released, what's not released. And that, to me, covers all of these issues. Whether you're an LBJ guy, did it, or whether you have issues with whatever happened on Dealey Plaza, the full compliance of the act is going to see all of these issues emerge. Because that's
what I'm saying, Andrew, is this committee is a buffer to prevent the release of these documents. That's why she created this committee. That's why bipartisan members of this committee said, yeah, we want that. I think the place for this is in federal court. I think that's where your medium should be, not dealing with Luna. I think that you're absolutely legally correct on your stance. And the power of that law that you speak about is 100% accurate as you describe it. The place that they want to be at is as a buffer. And to quote the Godfather movie, I don't think we need any more buffers, Senator. I think we should be in federal court about this stuff.
Well, I mean, look, I got to be careful.
Okay. I don't know why, but
let your Canadian come out. Go ahead.
Both Mark Adamczyk and I started working on the lawsuit very early in 2021. We did heavy lifting in terms of the research and drafting, and I got to say the lawsuit's been a huge disappointment, seeing the direction that it's gone in.
Explain why. Explain to us why that's a disappointment in layman's terms, if you can, Andrew.
Yeah, I'd rather save that for another day because it's still ongoing in front of the courts, and I don't want to be accused of trying to sabotage that lawsuit. but
Okay.
there were significant problems with the lawsuit to the point that
Problems with the
you know,
response or the suit itself? I mean, can you at least
Is
give
it
us a
on your end
general
or
thing
their
on the
end?
flow?
yeah, there was a lot of stuff left off the table or taken off the table before the lawsuit was filed,
By who?
and that was deeply problematic at the time.
Well, you're saying so
Um,
before it got to court, there was stuff taken out of it.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's incomplete.
Yes, and I mean, one of the main things was the issue of the final determinations, and so I mean, I've continued my research and writing on those final determinations, and I got to say, in the last filing, they've now, you know, cited my work and referenced me by name, which I asked them not to do because I had such deep concerns about the direction of the lawsuit. One of the other issues I think you're kind of touching on, Mark, is the way that these records are being released.
Yeah.
And I mean, the act is very clear. The National Archives is a repository and custodian of all records,
Right.
and all government offices and agencies have a legal duty to expeditiously transmit all assassination records directly to the National Archives to be included in the records collection,
Right.
and to be publicly disclosed. And I can't see that happening with a lot of these most recent releases. If you go on the National Archives webpage, I think the last release of records was April of 2025. But since April 2025, we've had a bunch of new releases that
Right.
are not appearing in the National Archives, but they're being
Is that because the lack of an archivist, or what's your take on that? Because this job has been in flux since April.
they're being handed over to Jeff Morley, who has exclusive access to these records.
Okay,
Which
let's
I
stop.
don't see
Why
anything
is
in the
an
act
outsider?
that permits that, or
Yeah.
says, hey, the agencies can turn assassination records directly over to a private citizen,
That's
and
crazy.
they don't have to send them directly to the archives. No, the
That's
act
crazy.
says the
That's crazy.
opposite to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I mean, I've
so-
gotten all my records over the years from that, from their website. You know what I mean? I'm quite comfortable using that website, but if you're telling me now it's being diverted to private citizens, then we've got a whole different situation here.
Well, I can't see it. I might be wrong. I
Yeah.
might not be looking at the Byzantine, National Archives website correctly.
It's not the greatest website. I'll agree with you on that.
I mean, you guys do
Yeah.
your own searches on
Yeah.
the National Archives. I don't know
Yep.
whether you've seen any of these newly released records. If you have, I stand corrected. But I can't see any
I see
more
them on
recently
Mary
released
Farrell
than April of
Foundation.
2025.
I see them on the Mary Farrell Foundation website.
Right.
I mean, are they being diverted to that website from NARA?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I
I
guess
don't know.
I just want to get really clear with what we're saying or not saying, just to make sure. So that I understand, there are documents that have come out since April, but they're not appearing on the National Archives site, as far as you know, but they are appearing on the Mary Farrell Foundation site. Would that be a correct statement?
I have not specifically looked on the Mary Farrell site to see whether, like, let's say, for example, the Diaz or the Joanides files are on the
I
Mary
have.
Farrell site.
That's where they
I
are.
believe they are, though.
Yeah, no, I have looked at them there too. I agree.
And
I have seen them.
but I cannot find the Joanides files on the National Archives site.
Okay, so he has cut some sort of a deal, Morley, to get these documents through Luna and the National Archives. Seems to be quite obvious what's going on here. I don't even know if that's legal.
That's my
but
next question is, what is the law?
That's
and
insane.
Where are the documents supposed to be?
That's
like-
crazy.
Look, I can tell you exactly what the law says. Section 2B1 and 2, for the purposes of this act, are to provide for the creation of the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection at the National Archives and Record Administration, and 2, to require the expeditious transmission to the archivist and public disclosure of such records.
Right.
So that's section 2B1 and 2. The
Right.
other section is section 7, I believe it's 7L, which also says that those records are to be transmitted over to the National Archives.
So
there's
instead,
nothing-
they're going to a former writer for the Washington Post. To be blunt.
That's I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. I think
Okay. Well,
I
it's
think
news
Jefferson
to
Morley
me.
has stated that directly, that this is an exclusive scoop.
Oh
right?
my God. I had no idea. I haven't been following him that closely. I had no idea that this is going on. This is crazy. This is
So-
crazy.
It's very concerning, especially, I mean, the fact that any one individual,
Yeah.
period, I find to just be concerning. It's nothing about his status or anything else, but from what I understand, and I'm the newest guy to the JFK stuff out of all of you, I thought it was you take the files, you clear it, you scrub whatever is, not supposed to be there, and you throw it up on the site, and he's like,
Yeah.
go at it, boys.
Yeah.
It's all yours.
Yeah.
And that's not
Listen,
happening.
if it's not the way that we're discussing, then someone should speak up.
Someone should tell us.
If those records are in fact being transferred to the National Archives to be published and publicly released, then they should make it really clear on the National Archives website. But I went on today. I went on 3 times to check. I cannot find the Joanides files,
Wow.
or the Diaz files,
Wow.
or the recently released William Harvey files.
Yeah.
on
Where are the
National
William
Archives.
Harvey files? Did they get diverted to Mary Farrell?
I don't know. I've not checked the Mary
Yeah,
Farrell
yeah.
website.
Yeah.
Right. Listen, I'm happy that these files are being released.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying anyone is breaking the law about this.
Well, you
but
just read the law. I mean, it seems
sounds
pretty
like it.
clear. Seems pretty clear, the law, Andrew.
the law requires that these files be expeditiously transmitted to the National Archives. Okay.
Well, how do you define expeditiously?
Okay. Well, listen, I'm not an attorney, and
Well, here, let's
I'm
look
not.
at let's look at the site itself, because we're
Okay.
making claims here. I do find this on the site here on June 27th, 2025. The National Archives released over 20,000 pages from its complex, now online on the Mary Farrell Foundation. So
Wow.
if they are not, in fact, on the National Archives, that's a problem.
That's a problem. That's a
I
big.
mean, it says
that's
it
a
right
big-
here. It's on their site. I'm not, I literally just went there.
Wow.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think all of these records belong in the assassination records collection at NARA.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
if they should be transmitted there immediately.
Yeah. I mean,
if they
Morley
haven't
could go
already
there.
been.
Morley
Maybe
could go
this
there
is a
and take them
NARA
out.
administrative issue, and they just
Right.
haven't gotten around to posting them on the NARA website. It could be an administrative issue. I don't
Well,
know.
I'm gonna ask this guy Schnapp about it, because he's also a member of Mary Farrell. I'll ask Larry about it. She also said, according to Larry, that she will be getting records from the KGB files in Moscow. Do you know anything about those documents?
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm not following the KGB files. I
Okay.
don't have, like, they're in Russian.
Yeah.
I don't have any faith that they're going to shed any reliable light on
Right.
the assassination. I mean, they're Soviet era records.
There's also
that-
a courtesy. There's nothing that says that they have to release it. We don't have an act saying these will be released. We have to
Right.
go to Russia and say, hey, can you help us out and give it to us? And they will choose, I think, whether they wish to release them or not release them, or
Cherry
what they're
pick?
releasing. Oh no, never, Mark. Definitely not the
Look,
not
I'm
Russia.
sure they'll have some interesting stuff in them.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the Russians, Soviets were masters of spreading disinformation. So I don't think any of those records are going to be completely reliable. They may shed some interesting light on the history of the case, but I don't think there's.
Well, apparently throughout history, when it waxes and wanes, different things politically seem to bring up different possible motives and assassination motifs. When we were in the Cold War, the Soviets were in vogue as to have killed Kennedy. I mean, you know what I'm saying, Andrew? It changes as the political climate has changed. It's one of these odd political accordions, and recently being squeezed as a tune out of that accordion, which came from Luna's own release, that Angleton in Israel popped up out of one of her documents, and she saw fit to release those two names without any explanation or any sort of.
Yeah, Bondi actually.
Bondi did it, right?
It wasn't all people.
Yeah, it was Bondi.
It's like one Angleton document, and of course it said Israel. Like, what happened there?
It's just really strange leak of nothingness.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you guys are extremely well read. I'm not an expert in terms of all the facts of the assassination, but even at a basic level, I think people realize that there's so much information coming from so many different directions that it really is hard to derive a really solid view that's consistent with all the information. It's almost impossible.
That's true. That is true. But getting back to those RIF numbers again, one of the documents that has resurfaced historically again is this McCone-Rowley document. And I thought it was dead and buried. I talked to DiEugenio about it years ago, and we thought, most people in the JFK community thought this was buried at least in the mid-90s. And now all of a sudden, it has a copied RIF number from other documents. This thing has appeared out of thin air once again to rear its ugly conspiratorial document head, and people are buying into this thing.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with the McCone-Rowley.
Well, it's not a question of McCone-Rowley. It's a question of fraudulent documents, Andrew. Like, what measures do we use, even in your own search for documents, to shed light on the fact that some of these might not be true?
Well, the angle that I take on this, Mark, is really looking at the metadata within each of the records. And NARA, even back in the early 90s, had a tracking process for recording the transmission of records into the National Archives. And I think it's important to look at each of these records and understand, A, what agency transmitted them to National Archives? When did the National Archives receive and catalog that specific record?
Right.
And if you can't see the metadata and there's no identification aid that provides those real granular details about how the record was actually handled, then it certainly goes to the weight and the credibility of that record. And you know, one of the things that we discovered was a February 10, 1992 internal secret CIA memo that was issued. And so you got to put these things in a time frame. Yeah. Oliver Stone's movie came out at the end of December 1991, and immediately the agency started to scramble because they saw that final trailer on Stone's film, where it basically said thousands of HSCA records were being withheld to the year 2029. And the American public just was outraged that there were thousands of records being withheld from them about the assassination. And so especially the CIA, but other agencies kind of ramped up.
Well, just to interject, and I boldly said we've destroyed all of our records in public the night before they were supposed to testify before the House committee. So yeah, you're correct. They even said that we destroyed our records on Oswald.
What was amazing to me in looking at this memo, the chief of the CIA Historical Records Group was tasked by the Director of Central Intelligence with cataloging all of the CIA's HSCA records, and the HSCA demanded a pretty wide-ranging disclosure of CIA records. And I think the CIA really compartmentalized those records into what they called the sequestered collection. And so the director of Central Intelligence literally tasked this guy, Kenneth MacDonald, into A, cataloging everything in the sequestered collection, and B, coming up with a strategy on how to maintain security classification over all of those records with the pending JFK Records Act on the radar. And so essentially what they decided before the act was even passed was that they would try to transfer assassination records to NARA under their existing security classification, hoping that they would maintain that classification despite any legislation that was pending. So a subsequent memo, also dated February 10, 1992, coming from what I believe was the operations directorate, they said, absolutely not. We're not going to transfer any operational files of the CIA to any third party to maintain. There's no way in hell that that's going to happen. And so what this shows is that there was a mindset to try to avoid the pending legislation that was coming through. And you tie that back to what Judge Tunheim said during his testimony. A lot of the records were never seen by the ARRB, and therefore those records were never reviewed under the standards of the Act. And what we're seeing is metadata on the identification aids for many of these records that appears to suggest that the records were transferred to NARA in November 1998. So that's a month or two after the ARB's operations terminated. So ARB went out of business the end of September 1998, and we're seeing transfer metadata of November 1998 and then a bunch in 2000. So it looks like a lot of these records, including records involving Reuben Efron, appear to be transferred to NARA after the ARB wound up its operations.
Now, you talked about the spirit of the ARB, going forward. Do you think that the spirit of the act continues, or is it end with the mandate that it's over?
Yeah, so Section 12B of the Act is pretty specific. The Act remains in full force and effect until all records have been certified as being released by the archivist. And so there are some parts of the Act that do fall out of force, and those deal specifically with appointments to the ARRB, because the ARRB is gone, and as well as the operations of the ARRB.
The actual money to the group too, right?
Yeah, like probably appropriations. Those parts would be would have no force and effect under Section 12A. But 12B says the Act continues to be operational so long as the archivist has not certified that all of the records are being released.
And the archivist has not done that.
No.
Right. No archivist has done that.
No archivist has done that
since the 90s or since the.
And that's one of the issues that we raised in the letter. What we're saying is, without a full index and directory of assassination records that show the actual status of each record, and without understanding whether the ARRB's final determinations have been enforced properly, no archivist should certify that all the records are being released. Like, again, the transparency and accountability provisions of the Act really should prevail in that instance and require a full accounting of every single record in the collection. And
could Rubio simply be the one to sign off on it by releasing these final records and then calling it a day?
That's what we're worried about that might happen. I mean, that would be a big problem.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
I certainly hope that he has that he has proper advice on that,
right?
And that he looks at these issues extremely closely and adheres to his legal duty under the Act.
Well,
If
who's
it's-
talking to him? That's what I'm concerned about, is the gatekeeper question, if you will.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, there is
It's
an
a big,
archivist.
it's a big concern. And
Yeah.
listen, this just isn't me, railing at the gate here. I mean, Oliver Stone has now written 2 specific letters. Doug Horn has written multiple letters to the task force going, you have to do oversight to make sure that they're complying with the Act. And both Oliver Stone and Doug Horn have raised the issue of the AARRB's final determinations.
Well, you're looking for oversight of the Oversight Committee.
Well, look, if the task force recommends to the full Oversight Committee, and again, remember, this is just the House Oversight.
Yeah.
The Senate Oversight Committee also has duties under the Act to conduct oversight as well.
Right.
And I hope that that's the recommendation of Representative Luna. Listen, I haven't lost all hope that this won't happen, and that was kind of the point of the letter that.
Has
that
she
Jeff-
responded to anyone's letters, Andrew, that you know of?
I have not checked in to see recently whether there's been any direct response to Oliver Stone's letter. I don't believe Doug Horn has received a substantive response. And again, Doug Horn's letter covers a wide range of records that are still missing and are in need of public release around the autopsy. My personal opinion is those records are incredibly important.
Yeah.
Likely more important than any of the recent releases that we've seen. We got to get those autopsy x-rays and photographs and other autopsy records so we know what the actual cause of death was of President Kennedy. So I would certainly hope that there's follow-up on both Doug Horn and Oliver Stone's requests. But no, I really haven't received a substantive response. And I got to say, guys, I went to Washington, D.C. in November of 2024. I spent an hour with a congressman going over my concerns. Congressman Tim Burchett, who's on the task force, was very generous with his time and attention. I shared all of that information with Jeff Morley and with the lobbyists that he has in a good faith effort to collaborate. And ever since that, I've gotten no response really, no substantive response from any of my contacts. I've worked hard to establish like a credible research reputation on this. My work, I'm assuming that you've seen some of the articles. But
Yeah.
they're a little bit lengthy, so I don't expect.
No.
everyone to
Just
read
for the
right
people
through
at
them.
home, they can go to Kennedy and King, which is Jim Diogenio's main website, and find the articles that Andrew is talking about. You could also get the book Chokeholds, which we've talked about on the show before. A lot of the information is in Chokeholds, and the articles that Andrew is referring to, long or not, are on Kennedy and King, which is probably the best website for these types of articles.
Yeah, Jim has been fantastic and has spent a lot of time looking at the work that myself and Mark Adamczyk have done on the JFK Records Act, and I think anyone who takes a serious look at this, it's undeniable that the ARRB issued tens of thousands of binding and enforceable legal orders. Where are they? By law, they should have been made public. They should have been published in annual reports by the ARRB. They should have, they're required by law to be handed over to the archivist.
Right. That's why I'm
You know-
wondering why this can't be settled in court, either with you and Mary Farrell Foundation et al., or a group, put together to settle this in court. It would seem to be the natural playground for this.
I agree. I totally agree with that. And that was certainly my intention.
Right.
But since we only have less than 2% of the final determinations, some people are saying, well, unless you can prove that an order was not enforced or complied with, then you got nothing. But we have 1.67% of the total final determinations issued out of more than 27,000 final determinations. And
it seems like a slam dunk, Andrew. I don't know why this would even be complicated in a court. You come in there with your documentation of these ARRB rules and regulations, and they make a ruling in favor or not in favor.
The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal even stated in their decision last year that the final determination, that you have to be able to show that there was a reviewable decision, and without a reviewable decision, it's an extremely difficult case to make. So the Ninth Circuit has basically
right. So they're saying at an appeals court level, you can't appeal something that hasn't been ruled on in layman's terms, right?
Well, you got to show the decision that you're appealing, right?
Right. So is there a decision to appeal?
Yeah. That's essentially it. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So there's some complex law involved in all of this, and it's more than just the JFK Records Act. And you know what? Look, just to be clear, I'm a Canadian lawyer. I'm not an American attorney.
No, I know. I was going to ask you that.
I know how to read.
Why would they listen to you? They don't even listen to us. Now the people coming in from foreign countries playing, games with a puck and a stick. I mean, they may not take you as seriously.
I'm sorry, I'm Canadian. What am I supposed to say?
No, I don't know where the standing or latches or standing.
I don't practice law. I don't pretend to practice law in the United States.
Right.
But I mean, my articles are academically researched articles. Yeah. And if someone has an issue with the substance of my articles, they should certainly attack the substance of my articles and not the fact that I'm a Canadian.
You're also working with a Florida attorney, correct?
Right. You have a partner who's in Florida.
Yeah. Mark Adamczyk is definitely the most knowledgeable guy that I know on the JFK Records Act and in detail what's happened over the last 5 years. So look, there's a story in all of this. I've tried to tell the public about these final determinations, which were largely I don't know. Have you guys ever heard of a final determination?
No.
Everyone's heard of a RIF form.
Yeah.
But the final determinations were a bit of an enigma. And until I actually saw a box full of them, and the box was, the box at the National Archives was, it was labeled press and public contacts. And that have nothing to do with final determination. So you couldn't really even search for these on the NARA website.
By the way, I'm going to interrupt really quickly because I have some, I don't know if it'd be breaking news or what, but while I stepped away, I got an email that we have more information about the JFK Lancer conference. And I believe, Andrew, you're going to be there as well.
Right on.
And I thought it would be a good time to talk about it because we've got a new page that's breaking down who's in person, who's going to be virtual, how is this conference going to go. And as we've told everybody, that little squiggly thing that, as Mark says in the bottom right corner, is called a QR code that has JFK in the background. You can scan that with your phone, or you can always click a link in wherever you're watching the description and use the code Untold10 to get 10% off, and it gives us credit. So let's go and take a look at what we have going here.
Oh, interesting.
Wow, look at that.
Look, Mark Show's going to be there virtually.
It looks like Groubert and Hunley are going to be having a panel at the top.
Wow.
Then we got Matt Crumpton, Jeff Cruddle, and Joe Borelli.
Oh, there's Andrew, JFK Records Act. Okay, Andrew. You're on the big board.
Yeah, yes.
I think I'm there on Saturday, right? I hope Saturday.
I don't know what the schedule is.
I don't know the times.
I think we're Saturday too, right before dinner. I think
that's what we did last time.
Yeah, whatever we did last time.
Rolled from ours into food, which was good.
Tannenbaum's on the list too. I'm curious as to who this Scott Reed is with this Walker story.
Oh yeah.
Scott Reed is a Scottish researcher, I believe.
Oh wow. Okay.
wow.
Yeah, I met him when I was over at the Dealey Plaza UK 30th anniversary conference. Excellent researcher.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Oh boy, how is it folded? Paul Abbott. Bannister, I think Janet is his granddaughter or something of Guy Bannister. I think she may have a book. And Matt Douthit, I assume, is doing
He's
stuff with
JD Tippett.
with Tippett again.
I think he's on a panel. No, that's Crumpton. Wait, so 3 of the chokehold authors are there? You, Crumpton, and
Are these different
Paul
stories?
Blow?
I believe Paul Blow is trying to make it there in person, but he may be presenting virtually. Mark Adamczyk will be there as well.
Oh, cool.
Oh,
We'll have to
good.
get together.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
That's cool.
It sounds like an excellent slate of speakers. It's
Yeah.
Should shape up to be a great conference.
Now, what about this secret code, Eric? How do you use the secret code?
When you're purchasing, there will be a code, and you insert it, and it'll be Untold 10. And
I got you.
it should be case insensitive, but go ahead and put it in either all lowercase or all uppercase. If it doesn't work, change the case, but Untold
case.
10 should work for you. We haven't gotten any feedback that it hasn't. As a matter of fact, we've gotten reports back that our numbers keep growing. A lot of people are going.
We got a lot of
and
people buying tickets to see whatever the hell it is we're doing, which is yet to be determined.
definitely check out the buffet.
The
when you're
buffet is
there.
the main reason I'm going. That and the incredible hotel.
Absolutely. Actually, we can look at that. What kind of hotel?
Yeah,
is
let's
it,
take a
Mark?
look at it. This
Well,
is
when you drive up to the hotel,
yeah,
you will
look at
see
this.
this entrance.
This is not a Motel 6. They're going. This is big game hunting now. They're involved with here, Andrew.
It looks good.
This
The Fairmont.
The Fairmont. This is
right.
increased as the Lancer conference importance has increased. So
So, what would the room look like, Mark? Oh, maybe
let's take a
something
look
like
at this. This is where we're going to present, Andrew. This might be fun.
It's the big show.
The big show.
Well,
This
you
is-
guys are the big show.
right.
but,
This is where we're working the big room in Vegas. This is.
Hey, last time we were there, it was packed. I mean,
It was
there were so
insane.
many
It was
people,
insane.
and there was like an L, so
Yeah.
we couldn't even see all the way to the end of it. But it was completely full in
Yeah,
that
people
room.
are coming from all over the world for this. We've got people coming from Scotland,
Australia.
Australia, Germany, England. A lot of UK people are coming. What's today? September, the end of September. So you've got almost
Not quite 2 months.
almost 2 months to get your shit together and get there. There's a lot of people taking a steamship. I'm going to be in this pool for most of the weekend, so that's where you'll find me doing laps. This will be fun. Hopefully, look at these. This is great. This is great.
Nice little suite here.
Yeah, this is really nice, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm
This-
really looking forward to it. And it's not just the conferences. There's so much
Yeah.
to see around Dallas with regard
Absolutely.
to the assassination, and taking in all of the sites is one of the things that I've really enjoyed each time I've been down there.
Have you been to Dealey Plaza, Andrew?
I went there for the first time in 1993 on a road trip across the United States.
Wow.
So really shortly after JFK came out, and I went up to the 6th floor museum. But just walking around Dealey Plaza was a great experience. I went back to Dallas for an actual conference in 2016, and then again I was there last year for last year's Lancer conference, and I spoke briefly. I was a walk-on onto the stage because I'd just come from the National Archives with Paul Blow and with Jeff Crudell, so they allowed us to do. Actually, it was pretty lucky. We got on for about 15-20 minutes to say what we had just found at the archives.
I recommend everybody check out Dealey Plaza. If you can
Yeah,
be there in person, you have to check it out because
It's
it is
bizarre
so
when you get there.
illuminating.
Yeah, it's not what you think it is until you get
No, it's
there.
not. No, it's not.
It's
It's so
completely
small.
different. The movie doesn't. Films don't really capture
Mm-mm.
the not only how small it is, but just how boxed in it is, like a little canyon. It's really interesting when you see how much of a shooting gallery it could be and was.
And you know what? I got to give a shout out to Matt Dowdett, who
Yeah.
last year he took a group of us on the route from the Texas School Book Depository up Elm Street, where Oswald allegedly caught the bus and then jumped into a cab, and then we went out to North Beckley, and we finished at the Texas Theater.
Yeah.
And we saw the Tippit shooting site, and we timed things, and it was actually, like you say, quite illuminating, just being on the ground,
Yes.
and walking those streets. It's
Yes.
just an amazing.
You really get the
experience.
vibe, when you see the house, when you see the theater, and outside of Dealey Plaza, Ruth Payne's house, you could go over there if you can get in and make an appointment. There's a lot of vibe you could pick up from just being there. Now there's a guide at the Beckley house too. I think it's been now has a tour also.
Yeah,
Matt
it's
gives
100%.
tours sometimes he's kind of informal, but he does a really good job from everybody I've heard.
Anyone who's interested in the assassination or researcher really should at least go to a conference once and see what's happening. And
Yeah, I
meet
mean,
people.
everybody's accessible. I mean, you could talk to anyone, ask. It's kind of shocking how accessible everyone is, and for questions and answers. I mean, including myself.
You know what? Each time I've been there, I mean, I've met Robert Groden now several times. Just such a nice guy.
Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Yeah.
I've met so many. Like I met Jim D'Eugenio there for the first time in 2016. I doubt he remembers meeting me. It was like almost 10 years before Chokeholds came out, so it's kind of funny. But each conference has just such a unique set of speakers. I met some of the witnesses. I met Beverly Oliver one year.
Wow. Wow.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's amazing.
Well, we're looking to meeting you too, and your partner. That'll be fun. And Paul, we know we've talked to him down there, and I don't know if Jim's going to be there again, but that's always.
I don't think Jim is going to be attending this one.
Okay.
But, the rest of us will try to fill in for Jim. Now, guys, if I could just, I don't know whether we're kind of wrapping up like the main part of the show, but this letter that Jeff Crudell, Mark Adamczyk, and I wrote, it's on the JFK Chokeholds webpage. I think I've given you a link to the media section where the letter is posted. I'm really asking all of your viewers, take a look at the letter. What we're asking for is mandatory oversight of the JFK Records collection.
This is it here, right?
And the compliance. Yeah, the compliance.
It's
with
6
the
pages, so we're not going to read through the whole thing.
No.
But yeah, if you can just describe what it's all about, and be happy to repost it, share it, etc.
And if your viewers feel so inclined, follow up with Representative Luna, send a copy of the letter to your local congressperson.
Tag her on X.
She's on X all
Follow
the time.
us on X. Tag her. That's a good way to get a groundswell and get people's attention who may not realize it. I do all the formal stuff. I agree with you on that. But if you want publicity or you want people to be aware, a lot of people just assume, oh, hey, the Assassinations Act, okay, it's done. What I played, Trump signed it. We're good to go. And you need to have people out there shouting out other people and saying, hey, this isn't happening. This needs to happen. And that will get amplified. And X does a better job than any other place.
Well, where did Luna leave this thing? Do you know, Andrew, in terms of hearings? Do you know?
We don't know whether there's going to be another hearing on JFK.
I know.
This could be it. There's a report that is going to be issued. Apparently, Jeff Morley is going to be intimately involved with drafting the report. We're asking for a little bit wider viewpoints and participation in that process. And it's in our view, without actual oversight of the JFK Records collection, this is a massive missed opportunity, especially since the Act requires this kind of oversight. And Eric, you know, JFK Chokeholds has an extremely active Twitter page. It's at JFK Chokeholds. We've published the letter on at JFK Chokeholds. We publish things on our X feed almost every day. There's a lot of good research from each of the authors of Chokeholds that are going up. We've been really focused on the JFK Records and the JFK Records Act specifically over the last couple of months, because really that's where we're at with these congressional hearings.
Well, I just like that the man who believes that Oswald was in Mexico City is in charge of summing up the entire Luna report and is the point person, you know, because the most valuable Achilles heel of the CIA framing Lee Harvey Oswald is the attempt to frame him in Mexico City. And Morley is one of the longest and loudest proponents of that since it happened.
This is an area that you're really interested in, isn't it, Mark?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's an Achilles heel that can't be avoided. Even J. Edgar Hoover agreed that there was an imposter, not just in person, but an imposter on the phone, as per his own FBI agents who had been interrogating Oswald for 18 hours or 12 hours in Dallas. They simply said that's not the voice on the phone, and it's not the photo of the man in front of the Soviet embassy. And that's from, you know, September 28th, Andrew. I mean, if that can't be disproven, in other words, if that is a fraudulent man on the phone and a fraudulent man in the photo, then they were framing him on September 28th of 1963 in a foreign country, a place where he was not. And if they have photos of it, I think they would have released it a long time ago.
And David Atlee Phillips admitted it.
Atlee
to
Phillips
Mark
admitted
Lane.
it. Yeah, to Mark Lane.
Yeah,
At UCLA. He admitted in the debate that he was never in Mexico City. But Jefferson Morley believes that he was not only in Mexico City, he was having sex with Sylvia Duran. He was at bullfights. He was having an entire vacation in Mexico City.
You know what? This is really, I think, you know, look, all the credit to Jeff Morley for doing the work that he's done. I don't think anyone's trying to discredit the value of the work, especially on Joe Anides. But really, I think we've learned over history when you put all the influence in one person's hands, there is a danger in getting an inadequate resolution or conclusion, and that's really what we're trying to say. The gate needs to be opened just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And all we're asking for is real oversight of the JFK Records Act and the collection.
And I don't think that's too much to ask.
When it's not only for that, it's for everybody. I mean, it's for the JFK researching community that's out there doing it, but also people who want to just get into it and go look for themselves. It's supposed to be for the whole public.
Yeah.
And not a particular person, not a gatekeeper,
not even a particular website, not even a website. I mean,
yeah, they can make copies of it and sparse it any which way they want, but it really should be the one central location, because that's part of the problem too. You mentioned that memo before, Mark. Well, that's one of the issues. There's fake memos that are out there.
Yeah.
And things of that sort.
Well, maybe people have some questions for Andrew before, so maybe they have some. I don't know what they're thinking on the comment section, but they might have some questions that only Andrew could answer, Eric.
Yeah, if there's any questions, please get them. I'm going to go through some super chats while I wait for them to flow.
Right on.
Peter McGrath is a new member. We always appreciate that. Thank you, Peter. Pamela Clifton. We love Pamela. She's a regular. Happy Tuesday, guys. I substituted for 4th grade today, and you survived. Wow. That's scary to me. Children are scary. I wouldn't want to do that. Pew Pew coming in hot from Norway. Great guest tonight. I like Andrew Iler. He said this early.
Andrew.
So he made a great first impression early on to Pew Pew.
Wow.
One of our most loyal supporters. Jojo with £2. Thank you very, very much. We've got K Digital. Please do episodes on Richard Nagel and David Morales.
Well, the Nagel one, that's a complicated story, but
is he the one who was shot in the roof
of the bank? Yeah.
Okay. And then Christopher Ebden gifted 10 America's Untold Stories memberships. We really appreciate. Thank you so much. It's very generous. And Diffuse, he didn't want to let it go and gifted 10 of his own. Gifted 10 memberships. Again, thank you so much. And by the way, do me a favor when you're coming in with questions, note it as such by question or Q or something. So that way I know that it's just easier for me to find because I'm looking all over. Stephen Greco, after LBJ's presidency, did he have a shrink and did he say anything to them? I know he was hammering hamburgers and liquor.
Yeah, I think we discussed this previously in some other episode. The law firm affiliated with LBJ hired a psychiatrist to go to the ranch and actually do sessions with him to find out what he was talking about, because word had gotten back to Austin that he was having cabinet meetings with his Mexican ranch hands every morning, and various dignitaries who had visited this is duly noted, various dignitaries visiting the ranch were not recognized by him. So the law firm did hire a shrink to go and have at least a couple of sessions with LBJ at the end of his life.
All right. I'm going to I'm putting a poll up to see if people are going to be going to JFK Lancer. And that's not only if you're physically going, but if you're going to virtually attend too. Just, let us know. I'd love to see if you're thinking of it. I'll make it easier. If you're thinking about going to JFK Lancer. Let me see if anybody has got questions coming through on Rumble. Boom, 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 boom. America for All is asking the same question we have, sort of, but why is it that Luna keeps inserting herself as the spigot for information? We've kind of discussed that.
I think it kind of is self-explanatory.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
One thing that and I don't know who I mentioned this to, but one thing that she should insist is that members of the staff at least watch Oliver Stone and Jim's documentary Destiny Betrayed, just as a mandatory requirement, so they be in the game. I mean, that's the least, I think, amount of work that you can request from these people who, for the most part, seemingly don't know anything about the assassination, from what I gathered from the hearings. Right. Making it mandatory to watch at least that. Even the short form from Amazon, Eric, would be incredibly eye-opening to these people and may allow them to inquire intelligently in their questioning.
And even just their staff member, I get it, to the congressperson will never get up and do it, but yeah.
You know what? I got to say, it was pretty obvious during the hearings that there were a few representatives who they seem to have taken a deep personal concern about the assassination and about the problems around secrecy around the records. I got to hand it. Congressman Burchett has been quite amazing.
Yeah.
Congressman Crane has been excellent. And you know what? For such a young person and a new representative, Chairwoman Luna has really gotten up to speed on a lot of the details. She's made a few small errors, and I think anyone in this business is prone to making some errors. But I think on the whole, like I'm not trying to cozy up to Representative Luna, but I mean, I think she's gotten up to speed quite proficiently, and I got to hand it to her. There are other, like Eric Burleson, Representative Burleson is another one. He's outright called for a whole new investigation. He wrote an excellent piece, I think, in the Daily Caller, I think it was, and he was very forceful about asking for a whole new investigation.
Well, and isn't that what is it Oliver calling for that too? Oliver's calling for an opening of a new investigation.
100%. Yeah. From Dealey Plaza to the autopsy.
Right. I think that's the only way it's going to really get any tread, is to start from a whole new investigation, from soup to nuts.
I think the American public has the stomach for it. The American public, still, the majority of them want to know what happened.
Yeah.
Okay. This is from Ort Cloud. I'm afraid if I follow Andrew, the Gestapo will take me away to prison and give me a bug soup for life.
Yeah.
Well, just follow
interesting.
JFK Chokeholds then. Don't follow Andrew directly.
Yeah, follow chokeholds. Yeah. That way they can't get you. You could always claim you stumbled onto a book.
Oh,
How is the book fulfilled? Through Amazon, Andrew, or do you guys fulfill the orders?
Yeah, we're on a lot of platforms. Amazon's the main one. Barnes and Noble. Like Spark. We have the book out there. It's done amazingly well.
Yeah.
And I think Paul was kind of excited to talk to you guys about the French version that came out.
Oh, really?
as long as you didn't talk to us in French.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? Paul did an amazing job with a lawyer in Montreal named Marc Bernard. L'Irréfutable is the French version. And you know, it hit a pretty high ranking both in Quebec and in France when it released. It was doing very, very well. I think it's still up there in terms of books in French.
In a lot of ways, it's a cliff notes on the assassination for people who don't know everything, who don't have the time or the wherewithal to study as much as other people have. This book sums it up into really succinct little chapters and bits, so you can absorb it easier.
Will you be signing it at the JFK Lancer conference? If people
Absolutely, we'll bring a few copies, and you guys bring your copy, and we'll get everyone to sign it.
Okay, all right.
You know what? We appreciate you guys. Really, I mean, you both have just done amazing service to get all of the authors on. I think you still haven't had Mark Adamczyk on, but you know what, with Paul and Jim, and I think you've communicated with Matt Crumpton.
I've been on with Matt on his podcast. I don't.
Oh, have you? Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. You know what? Genuinely, thank you for taking the time to look at our book.
Well, for me, I try to bring on I try to use my ability to see through the bullshit that's out there and promote the real stuff, if that makes any sense to anybody, because there's a lot of crap out there, and I try to weed through it and help out the ones that for what it's worth, that I believe are for real. And there's a lot of fake outs out there. There's a lot of things floating around that are not real, and then there's stuff that is real, you know.
Oh, check this out. Really quickly, somebody Pew Pew was asking in the chat about the conference, because he's in Norway. He might not make it here, but he'll get the virtual ticket. He wanted to know if it's interactive. Well, it turns out Gabrielle Glenn is here, who runs the conference. So she just informed us that they will have a chat function available for the conference on the website this year. They'll be also streaming each of the 3 days of in-person presentations and a virtual only day. Wow. That's kind of cool.
That's cool.
Gabrielle, if you could confirm this, I have been recommending to people, even if they buy the in-person, often at these conferences, and I haven't looked, you'll have in-person streaming, but then there will be another version where you can get a copy of it and then replay it forever. Will you have that option available for folks? If you could let us know, that'd be great. Because I always say, you know, when you go to the conference, things get confusing. You're running around. You might get in a side conversation. You're talking to somebody, then you miss a session. And it's helpful if people can buy that session later or have the opportunity to keep revisiting the sessions as they
That's
go.
super cool that Gabriella is on and able to respond like that. You know what? I met her last year at the Lancer, and she did just such a superb job making sure everything was running smoothly. And you know what, the research community owes her a big thank you. So I'm glad to see she's on.
Definitely.
Okay, JFK Hands-On Research, I guess, is tied in with the conference, and they're saying yes, we will have those options this year. And I just want to advise everybody to check it out, because I do different conferences, and I always do that. Get the virtual ticket so I have it. And then it frees it up to where I don't have to sit there and take notes. I know that I can watch it, enjoy it,
Right.
and then it's available for me to watch later. So it just makes a ton of sense.
Good advice. Good advice.
Basil Beshkov, unlike MLK Truth, has no expiration date. Reinvestigate.
I don't know what the date of or what the status. I don't know the status of this MLK stuff.
Well, I think he's talking about that judge who said that those records were sealed on MLK.
Oh, in
until
perpetuity. Yeah, the audio
70 or something.
The wiretaps that from the hotel in D.C. that RFK Sr. signed to wiretap Martin Luther King. Those have been sealed for reasons that were never made explainable by a regular judge for a person who was a regular citizen. That being said, it was an FBI wiretap, but it was legal at the time. So maybe we will hear that stuff someday.
Okay, it flashed by. I saw that Gabrielle did answer, but the chat's getting going. Well, anyway, she answered. I'm not able to pull it up on the screen.
Yeah, if I was Congressman Luna, I would send a staff member to the Lancer conference just to get a sense of the land of where we are as a research community. I mean, she should be all over this thing as sending 1 or 2 staffers.
But not Crockett, okay? Don't send Crockett to the conference. I know that's
she's
her
not
local, isn't she?
Yeah,
yes, she is. I know, and that's why I mentioned her name.
Well, we tried to get the mayor there last time. I was in contact with the mayor. I don't know what happened to him. I wanted him to introduce us as an organization. He didn't respond. That didn't work out.
All right. Well, anyway, Gabrielle Glenn did answer and said, yes, we do have that option.
Right on.
All in-person tickets include the streaming until the end of the year. So that's really
Nice.
cool.
Okay.
And then we have the VIP options, which include download options. So that's awesome for people to.
Yeah, let's reach out to Congresswoman Luna, invite her for free to come to the Lancer conference, because she would have her eyes open by, all the different things going on, all the different takes on this thing. I think it would really help her to
Or
understand.
even a staffer if she has to.
It could be a staffer, but it could be her
that's
too.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is. Most of them are home for the holidays at that time, Eric.
We'll start
No,
a GoFundMe.
We'll start a GoFundMe to fly her there.
There you go.
Or someone will drive across country with her in the car, thereby making the documentary My Trip with Luna. It makes its own sauce.
All right. Big Bill 767 with $33 said, Andrew, I think you were wrong. I would like to cozy up to Rep Luna.
Well, he likes a Representative Luna, so he is cozying up.
Well, a lot of people like her modeling pictures and
Oh, I
bathing
see what you're
pictures
saying.
and
I
whatnot.
gotcha. I got it.
Bezel,
Well, it's such a
Beshkov.
great country. Go ahead.
Sorry, Bezel Beshkov again. We Americans want to know the truth on Kennedy's murder to understand what country we live in.
Well, that's a broad generalization, but you're correct. And part of what Andrew's doing is to explain that. And the deeper we go into this, the more we begin to understand our own country. Even in the process of trying to understand our own country, we begin to see these gatekeepers and these deep staters. I mean, look how much has been exposed. All these people who deny that the JFK research community has had any progress since 1965. None of this would have been available if we had accepted the Warren Commission in 1964. We have learned so much about this nation simply through this window, this portal into this political assassination than anything ever investigated in the history of the United States. This portal has told us so much about our own agencies, about our government, about the people around it. And everything regarding the assassination is a gift that keeps on giving in a lot of ways.
It never stops giving. That's
Right.
the crazy part.
Yes.
Every decade, there's
Yeah.
new revelations that spill out or dribble out sometimes.
Yes.
Right.
Or they have their teeth pulled out.
All right, JFK Hands-On Research Show, I believe is tied into the conference, stated, what a great idea. She can come for free. So
Yeah.
if anybody has contacts with Rep Luna or her staff, etc., please put the word out that there is a conference going on at JFK Lancer, and they will be waiting. If they get a call, they will be happy to have her roll out the red carpet for her. So,
Well,
think
she's
that would
already
be
involved in the UFO investigations now, so maybe she can catch a quick flight
Well, she could also, while she's down there, she could go on Blaze. Blaze is local, so there are shows that she could go on and attend locally, things like that.
Okay, I'm good. Yeah, this is one of the articles Matt Roper. Matt, no, it's just you, right? You just wrote this yourself, Andrew, or is this everyone?
No, we have several articles.
Yeah, I think that that looks like one of my articles. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
The
of
Biden
Blaze.
CIA attempt to usurp Congress authority over JFK.
Well, that
Records.
one was with Mark Adamczyk and I co-wrote.
Oh, okay, okay, I stand corrected.
Yeah,
and
that
this
one
one's
was
about
back
20
in-
pages long. I haven't read it yet, but hopefully I'll get to it at some point between playoff games.
Yeah, we have definitely the priority. Let me see. Got Tim McLaughlin, member for 31 months. Wow, that's been a while.
That's a
2.5
long
years.
Yeah.
Great show as always. Keep exposing the deep state. Thank you very much. And who else do we have here? Christopher Ebden. Over 1,000 watching, yet only 82 likes. Weird.
Nobody
I think
likes
more,
us. They
think
watch
there's
it
more
because they
likes than
hate
that.
us.
But hit it just in case you missed it, because it does help a lot. Now, I think we're going to wrap up here. I do hope people consider checking out the conference. Again, you can go in person, you can go virtually. A lot of great people are going to be here, just like Andrew. Get a chance to get chokeholds, get the book signed, etc.
Yeah, that'd
And
be good. You can
for
get
now-
it signed by 3/4 of the authors.
Yeah, it looks that way. Just
And then
get
just
Jim
track
out there.
down the lazy guy who's not there on your own and get the last author to sign it. I think he lives in Burbank near me somewhere, so I know where you could find him for a price.
There you go. You can always do that. Now we are going to be heading over to locals. I hope you consider following us there, and we'll continue the conversation.
Well, not only follow us,
that.
but if you could become a member, you will be receiving the latest LBJ audio drama, plus a copy of the script when it's done and when you become a member. This is one of the items you receive for membership, Eric.
That's true. In addition, there's also the Oswald 5-part multi-series audio drama and other books. I'm probably going to be putting up some rare books on Oklahoma City that people might want to check out that are in the hundreds of dollars for a side project I'm doing there. So there's definitely a lot of things, but you can go check it out for free right now.
Oh, right.
And then-
One last thing I wanted to say. Tomorrow, I'm doing a deep dive on the legendary Andy Kaufman faking his own death on What's Up with Lord Buckley. So people who are into Andy Kaufman, you might want to check that out.
All right, perfect. And Thursday, I'll be releasing an OJ interview. Turns out Friday is the 30th anniversary of his acquittal.
Well, that was quick.
So
Wow.
amazing
Wow.
if you consider it. So we head over to locals, and we'll see everybody there momentarily.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.